And before the president fled the country, Ashraf Ghani gave this TV address a few hours ago.
There is a clear need that the National Directorate of Security, alongside the police and the Afghan army, take the responsibility of the security of all the citizens as per my order to the Defence Minister and the Interior Minister. It is our responsibility, and God willing, we will carry out the responsibility in its best manner.
Well, for the latest, our special correspondent KARL BOSTIC joins us now to really just take a look at the situation in Afghanistan. KARL, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the program. Well, it's just been one city after the other, and today, of course, we're seeing the presidential palace really come under the control of the Taliban, and of course, the president fleeing the country. But what does this really mean, especially for the women and children who have all fled to the capital for safety?
That's right. Good evening. Well, we're seeing chaos being played out on many fronts. For example, it's just being reported that the U.S. flag, the American flag, has been lowered at the U.S. Embassy in Kabul, as the U.S. is effectively shutting down its diplomatic relations with Afghanistan for now, with the remaining staff at the Bagram Air Base. The air base in Bagram was at its peak the headquarters of the U.S. and the coalition efforts against the Taliban for the past 20 years. Bagram Air Base was turned over to the Taliban earlier today on Sunday. So what you also have to keep in mind is this. You know, the Taliban, they've waged their guerrilla warfare, which was building up over the past year and a half, 2 years or so. So they're now in the process of shifting from waging guerrilla war with incredible speed that shocked everyone to now shifting gears and begin the business of administering the country, running the country. You heard Abdullah speak about this transitional government. The problem is the outgoing government really has little leverage, especially with the foreign troops led by the U.S. now having left the country. What leverage they had was to basically warn the Taliban that if there was a return to imposing strict Islamic law in Afghanistan and retribution against those who worked with foreign countries, Western countries, in the military and the government, retribution against them, that Afghanistan and the Taliban would find itself diplomatically isolated, unable to get international recognition, unable to access badly needed international aid. Well, that so far has fallen on deaf ears, because it remains to be seen if any transitional government will even include members of the foreign government. So right now we're looking at the so-called Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. You're looking at a return to how Afghanistan was run by the Taliban in the 1990s. In those days, women weren't allowed to go to school. They weren't allowed to work. Already we're hearing reports of those all-girls schools being shut down, reports of schools where women and men and boys and girls attended school together. That's been ended. Shopkeepers in Kabul, they're taking down posters and ads that show women, for example, those are either being taken down or painted over. Women who work as nurses or doctors and in vitally critical hospitals. Any women who are working in places like hospitals, they're having to wear burqas from head to toe. Those sorts of things. Smartphones are being banned to cut off any communications with the outside world. We've only seen this anecdotally in isolated cities like Kunduz, for example, which was seized last week. But the question remains, is this going to be part of a systematic control as well? And again, just to give you a sense of just how much of a diplomatic domino effect this is having, I'll just go through some of the countries that have either shut down the industries, embassies are downsized, and you're looking at the U.S. They say the embassy will be closed by probably as soon as Tuesday, if not already, because the flag's flown down. You've got Germany, Britain, Pakistan, Netherlands, Switzerland, the Czech Republic, Canada, Norway, Australia, and Spain. All
KARL,
countries which are winding down their
KARL,
diplomatic
I don't know if you're hearing me. I just want to put you on the post there so that I can ask you very quickly again. It's 20 years. Some people have said it's 20 years of chaos, waste of over $1 trillion American taxpayers' money, $1 trillion. What would you say America truly achieved in Afghanistan, apart from, the killing, obliteration of Osama bin Laden, who was killed in Pakistan?
Well, that's a very interesting question because today the Secretary of State Antony Blinken says this is not Vietnam. The difference being that the U.S. initially did accomplish its mission. Its mission was to track down Osama bin Laden and to, if not eradicate al-Qaeda, make sure al-Qaeda does not find a haven in Afghanistan. So in that respect, that was mission accomplished. The problem is it became a mission that was a creeping mission, and that's where I think the mistakes were being made, because the U.S., out of all of its hubris, was trying to basically construct a Western-style democracy in a country that did not have that as its tradition. It was calling for elections and empowerment of women. In other words, out of hubris, it was ignoring the history, the culture, the politics of Afghanistan. Keep in mind that Afghanistan does have a history of so-called foreign invaders going back to the 19th century when the British occupied Afghanistan for several years. The Soviets occupied Afghanistan in the 1980s, but when the Soviets left after 10 years, at least the government they left behind stayed in power for 3 more years before being ousted by the Taliban. But here you have the U.S. after 20 years, and after leaving, the government's already collapsed. So you find that ignorance of history, culture, and politics. And the problem also is that the Afghans were dealt a psychological blow when the U.S. announced that they would be winding down, beginning from that Doha agreement in February of 2020. Once they knew that under the Trump White House, the U.S., they had committed to a May 1st deadline to withdraw troops. Right. And Biden, he doubled down on that.
Well, KARL BOSTIC, for keeping us updated tonight. We'll have to say thank you so much. Arise Special Correspondent KARL BOSTIC in Washington.